Greetings YouTube, and welcome to another wacky and fun-filled episode, vlog entry, Freelancer Joe. That might be a bit hyperbolic, extremely hyperbolic, but I'm here, and you're here, maybe, and the webcam is rolling, so, you know, we might as well get cracking. Yeah, it's pretty lame. I wonder if I should edit that out. Anyway, at the very least, the sooner I finish, the sooner I can have dinner. And I am so freaking hungry. Alright, so let's move this aside here. And where we left off last time was I had set up routing, navigation within my web application based upon user actions, in this case clicking a button. All well and good, but the next step for a web application would be to accept user input and retain the data for that input. Now, in a React Redux web application, there are two states. React, each of its components has its own particular state. And Redux is used to maintain an application-wide state. And that's useful for having one component get updated and then the new values being available to other components. So we are going to first start with accepting user input and updating React component state. I refer to that as the view state. So let's go to the ShowUI website, a very good website, which lists the API for the components as well as demos of said components. And let's see what's available. I know what's available. I just don't remember how to use everything off the top of my head because I don't remember everything. And so here, text fields, pretty standard stuff. It shows the various use cases, how to use them, recommendations for using them, and as well as my favorite, code snippets. So in this particular case, we'll just go ahead and capture that input text field, and let's update the alpha component. At some later point, I'm going to bother cleaning up my code, maybe. And in the constructor for this React component, we will define a default value for that text field to use. We shall we'll call it the view value. And in the code itself, it defines some styles. I'll go ahead and include that too because I'm far too lazy to. Sorry about that. I wonder if I should bother with the. Okay. And this is the text field itself, which we'll just place in our div here. Actually, you know what? We will change this to the alpha. Alpha. Oh. Alpha default value. Hopefully one day I'll be able to spell it correctly. The component itself has an ID. We'll call it name. A label that's associated with it. This is the style that gets associated with it. And this is where it pulls the value from the state. I'll change that to that. So what I am clucking over right now, is this. What syntax is what? It is a bit of a sticking point for me. I generally just stick with what I know works. Before, if I didn't do this, or not necessarily before in this, but on an earlier effort, when I didn't bother to wrap these things like this, it would invoke that onChange method continuously. I'm going to pass that in. It's just a bit of a problem. And in our constructor, we will go ahead and start change equals. What's the format for that? I'm honestly drawing a blank on what that format is. This handle change dot bind. Let's leave this as the format. And then we will copy that. Again, the syntax. Oh, interesting. That's actually taking that syntax. This may be one of those times where I should bother to experiment, but not right now, because I'm simply trying to demonstrate one thing. And you know what? I'm feeling froggy. Let's go ahead and see if that works. Yeah. Did that kill it right away? Nope. Handle change equals. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I know I've done this before. This, my friends, is why I cut and paste, because of my terrible memory. Oh. Set format, always find this, yeah. Yeah, see. I figured as much that I didn't like it. I mean, it looks like it'll take it. It's gotta be Babel. My version of Babel, or... Oh, that seemed that worked. Now it's going to complain about something missing. Yep. Oh. Really? I didn't import classes. It's interesting that I didn't import classes. Huh. Why I love Clint Eaton. Close. Alright. Classing classes of section. Ugh. Let's double check to make sure that that's how it uses that. Yep, there we go. So we've got our text field that displays the default value. And it takes it. And that's unsurprising. So when I navigate to Bravo, the alpha component unmounts. I navigate back to alpha, it remounts and resets the default value. All well and good. Now, do I want to? I'm trying to figure out what to demonstrate next, or how best to demonstrate it. In case you couldn't tell, I am completely winging this. I'm going to call it the state view value. And we'll go ahead and add a similar thing to Bravo and Charlie. So, of course, we need to import the text field. Before, include the style. So what would it do if it didn't have the style? I think I would simply still render it, just not do anything with it. Add the default value to the state. Redefine the function. Right now, we might not need that because I don't actually use this. Maybe I do. This one's just one of those good habit things I like to do. I'm sure there's performance reasons as to why I should not bind unnecessarily. And then remember that this is a shortcut, but when pulling things from the property or the state for the render view, I generally like to have them all done up front. Easier to keep track of, unless I forget. Say this is Bravo, and this is Charlie. I don't have to do anything for you. Define, so we got Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. Nice. Alright, but again, that is only each particular specific React component only knows about that value itself. So what we really want is the ability to share set values. If a value for alpha changes, we want Bravo to display it. Bravo, Charlie, etc., etc. So for that, we need to go into the redo portion of things. So the basic flow for that is you have something dispatch an action. Action fires off with a particular value. Reducer gets called. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, you know what? We'll just call it text field entry. No, text field update. Yes, that seems better. No, don't need a route. That's fine. You're fine. Okay. So that is just the constant defining that particular action. And the action itself, we'll go ahead. Define another one. This one's not. Well, I dig why they break it out, so I'm not gonna be irked about it too much. But here is where we can define the action as well as any values associated with said action. It sucks that it did that. So when this action is fired, it will have a type of text field update. We're going to go ahead and include key. This will help denote which text field got updated, as well as the new value. And then, of course, we need to remember to include it within the action. So that's all well and good. When the action is fired, it has to be placed into the application state. So now we need to, I don't necessarily need to, but a good habit to define the initial state of the application when it starts up. In this case, this will be the initial text field state. And then the application state as a whole is going to be initial text field state. But it would help if I define values. Okay, so alpha is going to be alpha, and you know, we'll call it app alpha. Make me run, Joe. Alpha default app. What do I call this? Value app. Find it for Bravo and Charlie as well. That would be very confusing. So the root reducer, which is fired whenever an action is dispatched, we break it down to handle each individual portion of the state. In this case, it's text fields. I'm going to call this reducer text fields. fields, actions, active state, text fields, and the action to handle. And again, Captain Cut and Paste will do what he does best. And so this particular function handles actions specific to, did I call it text fields or text field? Plural. And this is a bit redundant, but for all my harping about me not paying attention to small details and remembering things, sometimes I have a weird OCD that kicks in. Alright, so, however, we only have one action type for this reducer to handle. In this case, nerds. Yeah. This is the sort of thing I'd also break out into an additional constants file. Alpha colon action dot line, and Bravo will be state dot Bravo, and Charlie will be state dot Charlie. What this is basically saying is that if the action has a key equivalent to alpha, then use the value in the action and use the current application state values for Bravo and Charlie. And we are going to do the same thing essentially for Bravo and Charlie as well, except obviously the corresponding fields will get updated based on said actual value. So we don't need you, we don't need you, we don't need you, and alright, so the key is Bravo, then Bravo changes. Key is chart, Charlie, then Charlie changes. That's why that confused me. State that. Which is all well and good. But now we also need to make sure that the appropriate components can access them. Now, in this particular case, I should let that open. Alright. In the React component, after a dispatch occurs, an action happens and the reducer is updated, then React components that are bound to Redux will have this method called, and from here they can basically pull values from the application state and put them in the properties of the React component. So in this case, this is going to be text fields, and then it pulls from the state.text fields. And then okay, let's put in another text field, and we're going to call this alpha. And we'll call it the alpha value. And for now, we'll just display the value in alpha. So this dot props the text fields dot alpha, and we're not going to allow input on this for now. So that's all well and good. Well, you know what? Let's see if it is all well and good. Probably not. No, maybe it is. There we go. But that's not really what I'm trying to show. Entirely. I'm not pulling that, showing that Bravo is pulling from the application state for the alpha value. But the real power here is going to be if alpha changes in an application value, and do I do a dispatch? Alright, so for the first part of this, okay. So for the first part of this, alpha is obviously going to need to be able to display its text value itself. So it also is going to need to pull that text fields object, which is fine. Bear with me a second while I look at something. There we go. Yeah, I figured as much. So it pulls that off. It's also going to need. Oh no, not yet. It's also going to need a text field to display that value. And we'll pretty much call it the same thing. This is path view value. Path view value. This props text fields alpha. However, in this case, we're going to let it be editable. So we'll call this handle change to app. So first we bind it. Handle change app. I see. For this one, we would definitely need the binding because it refers to itself. Change app, and I'm going to say this dot text field update event the target dot value, which of course doesn't make sense because this dot props that text field update. But of course, I haven't defined a function called this.prop.setTextFieldUpdate. And that I will do here. And this is another Redux method, and it basically allows dispatching, action dispatching. And you know what, I'm going to call that update text field. So when I call that function, it's going to dispatch. Why is my formatting all off? An action. And the action that I defined is going to want a key value. And in this case, value passed in as the actual text field. The key is going to be alpha. Of course, that's the run action because transition requested only takes a key, but I want text field update. So let me see. It's going to call this.props.update text field, but I'll dispatch ACFA. Yeah, that wouldn't work. Let's see if that sticks. It looks like it's stuck. Alright, alpha, bravo. As you can see, the application view value for alpha is that. So we'll change this to oh, right. Okay, yeah, that was mildly foolish of me. Alright, so let me double check that. Yeah. Alright, so the thing is, it's using the value in the application state to always display this. Make sure. I mean, it's definitely a bug related to that. Okay. Oh. Text field update is not defined. Something else. It requires me to do that. I don't like that. On the one hand, oh, you know, it's just validation purposes. But on the other hand, it's all, oh no, you gotta hand thaw it. Wait, did I not? Cool. In the old days, I would just import the entire damn action file. No, seriously, I would. I would just import the entire thing. And I would just say actions dot. And that's what you get. And that's what I get. Okay, alpha view is here. Alright. Managers the same level as constants. 1, 2, 3. Still not entirely sure that this is going to work. Okay, alright. Derp app. And this is just derp. Now if I go to Bravo, Bravo is displaying derp app for alpha. Charlie is still using, oh, I didn't add it to Charlie, duh. Derp app 2. And as you can see, the alpha default value for the state came back in. And derp 2 is now in Bravo. So, ugly, sloppy. But what I have now demonstrated, one is the ability to capture user input, not just button clicks. 2, state data, I guess you could say local state data for components themselves. 3, application-wide state data. And 4, sharing of data between those components. Now, for this, what you see here, I'm basically sharing data between components that are pages. But what you can do is, if you have multiple components within the same page, and then you click one here, and this updates here, and vice versa. So it's all pretty good. And what's really nice about it is that React is smart enough, mostly smart enough, to only change certain things. Change the things that need to be changed, as opposed to having to re-render the entire thing, which is one of the advantages of it. But I have gone long, and I haven't even talked about the whole video editing thing. So I am going to wrap this up for now, but I'm going to check it in and commit like I'm supposed to. I'll go ahead and do that. Git commit -m state demo. Git push, because there's odds are a chance that I might forget. And we're pushed and checked in. And I'm not going to bother verifying that because it's never once had it not do it right. Anyway, I'll wrap this up for now. Thanks for joining me. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment box below. And if you like, then please hit like and subscribe and the notify bell if you want more. Until next time, take care and God bless.